here and start right away and let you all know that we'll probably be able to get through this in about 50 minutes. And if you have questions, please either put them in chat for me to address at the end. That'd probably be the best thing to do, because as I'm doing the presentation and following the PowerPoints, I can't follow along with chat. But if you will put them in there, know that I'm not ignoring you, that I'll look at the questions at the end. And if I haven't answered them in the presentation, I'll get to them. And so without further ado, let me get my screen share going and make sure that I can still see all of you. There we go. Okay, so I'm the executive director of a group called NPC Friends and Family, which is the college's nonprofit foundation. And the primary purpose that NPC Friends and Family exists is to provide scholarships for students like you to help you get through your educational journey without going into debt. And my party line, this is kind of my personal soapbox, is please look at all other resources like scholarships and grants and the FAFSA, which I'll nag you about in the future. Please look at all other resources before even considering taking out a student loan. A student loan is like the last resort, because you don't want to graduate from your program and be saddled with debt. You want to get started in your life and not have to deal with that. So before we go further, Elizabeth, are we recording this? Should I do record or?
We are recording.
Perfect.
And I'll have a link I can share with everybody.
Okay, and if you would also share it with Kelly Freeman in marketing, she will upload it to YouTube, and then we can make it pretty broadly available.
Oh, wonderful. Awesome. Okay.
So what are we going to cover in tonight's class? We're going to talk about kind of what scholarships are and where they come from. And this knowledge is to help you think about your audience when you're crafting your scholarship essay. We're going to talk about how to write what's called a personal essay. Many scholarship funders, not just those that I manage, but a number of scholarship funders, ask students to write a personal essay. And they go, well, I don't know what to say about myself. So we're going to try to demystify that and help you present yourself in a great way. And then we're going to go through this 500-word scholarship essay paragraph by paragraph. So we're going to break it out into 4 paragraphs and discuss the content of each, and then finish up by giving you some tips that will help you really stand out above other applicants, hopefully, so that the scholarship application will be successful. Then we're going to talk about some tips for making a scholarship search work, how you can find scholarships outside of those that are offered by NPC Friends and Family. But I'm also going to share with you a number of scholarships that we will have available for the spring 2022 semester. And then I'll take questions and answers at the end. So anybody can shout out an answer to this. And I know some of you have done this workshop before, but where do you think scholarships come from? And feel free to just unmute and answer the question. Where does the money for them come from?
Donation.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Tyler Allen, it does. And the reason that it's important to have this distinction is to understand kind of where donations come from. Donations come from people who believe in philanthropy or are philanthropists. And a philanthropist is just simply someone who cares about the well-being of other people, and they do something to show that. And you don't have to be a rich person to be a philanthropist. A really interesting fact I found out doing this job is that almost 70% of the charitable giving in this country comes from people of average middle income. So when we think of philanthropists, we think of people like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and, you know, that kind of thing. And it's really kind of the average middle income American that gives the most money to worthy causes. And these can be anything from student scholarships to soup kitchens to animal shelters to what have you. So what does this have to do with winning scholarships? Well, think in terms of when you're writing, you always have to consider your audience, right? So who do you think selects scholarship winners?
The people who need it most, I guess.
Who selects the person who needs it most? Who decides who that is? Let's say you get a pile of applications. Who's going to read all those applications and decide who gets the scholarship?
There's usually a committee.
Yes, there's a committee. Good job, Cornelia. Yeah, so there's typically a group of people that gather together and they read and score scholarship applications, just like you would maybe have somebody read and score your English paper. And they'll have a set of criteria that they're looking for. A lot of times need is part of it. Sometimes it's, academic based, they want to see a really high GPA. For NPC friends and family, we try to make it really clear in the instructions what we want to see in the essay, and the best, the most the way that you respond to that is what's going to help you win the scholarship, that you address all the points that they're looking for. So just so you know, in the case of NPC friends and family, I don't choose the winners. And for that reason, I will do my best to help you make a really strong competitive essay that addresses all the points the committees are looking for. And I want you to not only understand how to write a personal essay for NPC friends and family and for your time here at Northland Pioneer College, but for when you leave here, if you go on to university, that you can continue to seek scholarships to fund your education. So here's this committee of people that in all likelihood, you're never going to meet. Excuse me, my throat is so dry tonight. So you don't even know who they are. How in the world are you going to make a good impression on them and have them choose you to be the scholarship winner? The first paragraph of your essay is what's going to set the tone. And you want to do something that hooks and holds the readers of your application and puts them on your side from the first paragraph. The best way I have ever seen this done is for you to tell a story about yourself. So we see many scholarship essays that begin with, my name is so-and-so, and I graduated from such and such a high school, and I'm going to NPC to study this, and I need a scholarship. And none of that is necessarily not, that's accurate information, but it's not very compelling. So I want to give you a couple of examples, and I'm going to circle back to one of them later because I'm giving you this example for two reasons. But the first one of the best scholarship essays I ever read was early in my days as director of the foundation. We had a student that was applying for a scholarship for firefighters. She was going to enter our fire science academy. And she began by talking about how when she grew up in Southern Arizona, all the kids in her little town wanted to be 16 so they could get their driver's license. And she wanted to be 16 because that was the age when you could become a junior wildland firefighter. And she really wanted to do that because her dad and her grandpa were both firefighters. And in fact, her grandpa had founded the volunteer fire department where she lived. So she turned 16 and she got called out with her dad and grandpa on her first wildland fire. And she described sitting between them on the bench seat of the fire truck, driving down a gravel road through rolling, oak foothills and grasslands with the rest of the crew and the trucks behind him coming down the road. And she said the fire was burning perpendicular to the road. And as it got closer, I could not only see it and smell it, but I could hear it. And it began to roar, almost like the roar of an engine. And all of a sudden, my grandfather stopped the truck in the middle of the road. And he turned to me and he said, I don't want you to be scared. We're going to pull our turn-up gear over our faces so we don't inhale smoke. We're going to crawl under the fire truck and lie right in the middle of the road. The fire is going to burn over the road, and then we'll be able to flank it and fight it. And in her next sentence, she said, I was scared to death. And at the time I read this essay, we didn't get very many applications for scholarships at all. And I used to facilitate the roundtable discussion of the applications. And usually one member of the committee would read aloud the essay and the rest of them would be discussing and scoring it. And when this person was reading this essay, the room was silent. You could have heard a pin drop. And when she finished that paragraph, she stopped reading for a moment. And I think even if that student had not written another word, they would have given her that scholarship because they not only felt her interest in becoming a firefighter, they felt her passion for it. And it just really held them. And from then on, everything she said was really great. So that was a super example. And the next example began very differently. And this was from a young man that asked me to edit his scholarship essay. And I will do that for you guys as well. And so I opened it and I was reading it, and it began, when I was 18, I realized I had ruined my life. When I was in high school, I got into drugs and alcohol, and at 18, I was an alcoholic and a drug abuser, and I just wanted to hang out with my friends who were drunk and stoned. And I'm reading this going, wow, this is a scholarship essay? And then I kept reading and I was like, oh. And he went on and he said, I really felt like I had reached rock bottom, and I was visited one day by one of my uncles. And he said, I want you to come and help us with a family project. We're going to be doing a building project for one of your female relatives. So I want you to be at this place at this time tomorrow morning. And he said, to this day, I don't know why I did it. I felt like maybe that was my last hope of connecting with my family. But I showed up. And in the course of this project, I discovered that I loved working with my hands. I loved the precision of measuring and cutting. I loved the idea that when the project was finished, I had been part of creating it. And he went on to talk about how he had been clean and sober for 21 months. He joined AA, and he was working on completing his GED. He was going to be done with it that semester, and he wanted a scholarship because he wanted to study construction technology. So that was not only a gripping story, but it was a story of great hope. It was a story of resourcefulness, and this young man that had found himself and had a direction. So two super ways to capture and hold your audience's attention. So now that you've done that, you've written this fabulous first paragraph. This is where you need to talk about your education. So you've given an indication of what you want to study, and this is where you need to talk about it. And the key to this paragraph is including detail. And the detail has two purposes. One, if you just say, I'm going to go to Northland Pioneer College to pursue an associate degree in nursing. First of all, that's not a paragraph, it's a sentence, but it really doesn't tell very much. You want to put rich detail in there about how many credits you've taken and how many credits you still have to complete. And even include, if you want to go beyond your bachelor's of your associate of science in nursing to get a bachelor's in nursing, where are you going with your education and how far are you into it? And where do you still have to go? When you convey that much detail to a scholarship review committee, they understand that you know what you've taken on. Students oftentimes enter college and they think, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to become a this. And then they kind of get into their education and they realize maybe they want to do something else, and that's okay too. You could even talk about, I started in this and now I'm pursuing this and I'm passionate about it. But they want to understand that you know what you're getting into, because if you don't appear to understand your own educational path, you may plant a seed of doubt in their mind that you're not going to finish, that you're going to realize, holy cow, college is a challenge, and I don't think I'm up to it. I'm not going to finish it. So lots of detail there. The other thing that you need to be really clear about when you talk about your education is, how is it going to connect to the career path that you've chosen? So if in other words, if you have decided that you want to become an elementary education teacher, how is your degree choice at Northland Pioneer College going to lead to that? That's the kind of detail that the reviewers want to see, so that they understand that you know what you're getting into and where you're going to end up. Okay, so now you have two great paragraphs. You've introduced yourself in a way that really hooked and held their attention and got them on your side. And then you convinced them that you really know where you're going with this education and you're motivated to do it. The third paragraph is where you need to talk about your own resourcefulness. What is resourcefulness? And it can be tangible. Resourcefulness can be something we can touch, and it can also be sort of ideological. So what do you think resourcefulness means?
The way I kind of look at it is like how maybe knowledgeable a person is, probably, or like what they've learned.
Okay, so maybe what you can convey here is what makes you a good candidate for this scholarship based on what you've learned. And maybe, we talked in the previous paragraph about what you learned through your education, but what have you learned through life? Have you volunteered? Have you been a member of Phi Theta Kappa? Have you been on a sports team? So this is where you can talk about the resources that you bring to bear that are going to make you a great candidate that are going to make you successful with your education. So that's the sort of intangible. The tangible part of resourcefulness has to do with money. Okay. And so most scholarships that are out there right now run for maybe $500, $1,000, $2,000. There are very few of them left that are what we used to call a full ride. You know, they cover your tuition and course fees and books and housing, and they give you a food allowance. Those are very difficult to find anymore. So you're writing for scholarships that are not going to fund your whole education. They may not even fund your whole semester. There's something to help you. So the Scholarship Review Committee is going to kind of need to understand, how are you undertaking this education without our help? You know, what have you got to pay for it without the help of the scholarship? So this is where you can talk about whether you work and earn money, if you have some savings, if your family is helping you, if you have other scholarships, if you have the federal Pell Grant. This is where you can say, this is what I have, and this is what I'm using it for. By the way, how many of you guys have filled out your FAFSA? I hope everybody has filled out their FAFSA for the current academic year. And in October, you can fill it out for the next academic year. And I'm going to nag you about this again, because it's very important, but here's 2 reasons why I want you to do it. Most scholarship funders require that you complete the FAFSA because they want to see what's called your student aid report. It gives them an idea of the level of need that you have. And if you have what's called a high estimated family contribution, or EFC, that doesn't necessarily disqualify you from receiving a scholarship. The FAFSA is just the level standard by which all students can be measured with the same stick. The other reason I love to tell students to apply for the FAFSA is that oftentimes the ones that dig in their heels and go, I don't want to do it, I haven't had time, I don't know, they do it and they find out they qualify for a Pell Grant, which is really cool because that's money you don't have to pay back. So there's 2 reasons you really ought to do it, and I'll give you the link to that shortly. Another thing is this semester, Northland Pioneer College got a grant from the CARES Act because of COVID. And if you fill out the FAFSA, you automatically receive $500. So that's a really, really good reason to fill it out right there. So you're talking about all the resources that you have to help you fund your education, and all the intrinsic resources you have that are going to help make you successful. Okay, so now you have 3 paragraphs. You've introduced the audience and hooked and held them. You've described your educational path in such a way as to leave no doubt in their minds that you know where you're going. And you've talked about the resources that you have and what you're doing to fund your education. The 4th paragraph is where you need to sum it all up and tell them exactly how you will use the scholarship. So in other words, be so specific as to say the name of the scholarship and the amount of the scholarship, and then tell what you'll use it for. If I am awarded, you know, so you're going to sum up all the things you said about your desire and passion and your educational journey and resourcefulness, and then say, if I am awarded the Press Winslow Memorial Scholarship in the amount of $1,000 for the spring semester, I am going to use it for books that are not covered by my Pell Grant, or I'm going to use it for daycare so that I can put my daughter in preschool while I attend college classes. Or a really valid thing that students across our service area need scholarship money for is transportation, because we're spread out over an area of 120,000 square miles, you know, so there's people that travel an hour or 2 or more to get to classes. So it's very valid to say, I'm going to use it to help pay for gas to get to classes. That's a perfectly legitimate reason. Thing you don't want to do is to leave it unsaid, because then they will have a feeling that maybe you don't need this scholarship. Committees want to know what you need it for. Okay, so there's our 4 paragraphs. You introduced yourself with a story. You told about your educational plan in detail. You talked about the resources that you have that make you an excellent candidate for your scholarship and success in your educational path, and described what resources you had to pay for your education. And then you said, this is what I need this particular scholarship for. So that's your 4 paragraph, 500 word personal essay. So if you have any questions for me about this right now, you can jot them in chat and I'll come to those. And now we're going to kind of talk about some tips that will give you a winning edge. Conclude your essay with a thank you to the review committee for taking the time to consider your application. I also think it's really cool when students who are awarded scholarships write thank you letters to review committees. But I think it's even cooler when students who are denied scholarships, they didn't get awarded the one they applied for, write a thank you letter for the committee's consideration of them. And here's why. It's the right thing to do, right? But also, scholarships are cyclical. So when review committees get a thank you from someone who didn't even get awarded, they're probably going to remember that person, and they're human beings. They're probably going to review them more favorably next time around. And plus that person's going to work harder to refine their essay and all that good stuff between now and then. So thank you is always important. Okay, the first tip is some scholarships, and I'll show you the ones that do from NPC Friends and Family, require letters of recommendation. And so you can ask for letters of recommendation from people that you've worked for, from people that you have taken classes from your academic advisors, from other people that you've worked with at the college. You can request them from anyone who can attest to your quality as a great candidate for a scholarship. And you can't request them from people like your close friends and family, because those people, we hope are going to give you a good recommendation. We want to hear it from someone, outside of your inner circle. A really cool thing that you can do is once you get your essay written and edited and in final draft form, send it to your recommenders, because they can read what you're saying in your essay and they can reinforce what you said in their letter of recommendation. Letters of recommendation cannot be submitted by you to the scholar, to me. They have to come directly from the recommenders to however you're submitting the scholarship. Just like if you did one for a place of employment, your references have to send their letters of recommendation to your prospective employer. Also, request letters of recommendation way before the scholarship deadline. And so a word about deadlines. If a scholarship deadline is September 10th, to you, in your mind and in your planner, it's September 5th. Back up the deadline 5 days or a week so that you don't miss it. A deadline is not the day that you should submit your application. It's the absolute last day you can submit it. And I will tell you, I will not accept late applications for any reason. And the reason for that is, it's not fair if you wait until the last minute and miss the deadline for me to allow your application to be considered next to someone who worked really hard and got theirs in advance of the deadline. So deadlines are always a week before they really are. And tell your recommenders the same thing. If you know that the deadline is November 10th, tell your recommenders the deadline is November 1st. And then don't hesitate to keep reminding them, because they're going to want to help you, but they get busy and they forget. So keep reminding them, did you send my letter of recommendation? Because you don't want that to jeopardize your ability to win the scholarship. Okay, so tip 2, we were talking about deadlines. If you have a specific topic that you're given to write to, look closely at that criteria and write to that. I just gave you the menu, the recipe for a 4-paragraph personal essay. If you look at a scholarship and they want you to write about, we had a scholarship on our webpage a few years ago that was from an insurance company, and they wanted students to write about the importance of wearing seatbelts while driving. Well, if that's what they want you to write about, by all means, write about that. So stick to the topics and look at, if they ask you questions, be sure to address each of those questions in detail. Be sure that, go back and be sure that you've covered each of them. Okay, and submit your application exactly as directed. If it says that it's supposed to be an online application, do not mail it. If it's supposed to be a single document, don't send, a whole bunch of different screenshots you took on your phone. Send it as it's directed. Never exceed the word count. Use your software, whatever you're writing with, your Word software, use the word count function in that, so that you know that you're not going to exceed the word count, because that can give a committee reason to disqualify your application. And then finally, I'm going to show you some scholarships from NPC friends and family at the close of the presentation tonight. And you're not going to be able to apply for all of them. You're not going to meet the eligibility for everyone. Do not apply for those that you're not eligible for. Only apply for the ones that you meet the criteria for. Okay, this is especially hard, I think, is a lot of times for younger students. They feel awkward when I help them edit essays. They feel awkward about coming across as being passionate or excited about something. And I tell them, you know, this is the only opportunity that you're going to have to connect with these people that you're probably never going to meet. They're reading about you on a piece of paper. And so let that passion come through. Let the feelings come through. They're not going to laugh at you. They're not going to judge you. They're going to see it as a benefit that you really are invested in this educational journey that you're taking. Okay, some scholarships have a kind of a fill in the blank form. Ours do not. They have a cover page that I'll go over, but they have a fill in the blank form that asks a lot of the questions that would be included in a personal essay. For example, they would say, what high school did you graduate from? What was your GPA? Did you belong to any extracurricular clubs or organizations? Did you play on any sports teams? When you get into writing the personal essay, don't just restate what you said on that form, build on it. So where you said on the form, I was a member of Phi Theta Kappa. When you get to that third paragraph about resourcefulness, say, when I was a member of Phi Theta Kappa in thus and such year, we had a coat drive for our community, and I helped to bring in over 100 coats for people in our community for that winter. So build on your accomplishments. Why was it important that you were part of that group, and what did it do for you? Okay, this is a biggie. and I have seen a lot of reviewers completely turned off by what would be otherwise a strong essay. What is a sob story? Or if you will, what's the purpose of telling a sob story?
To convince them to like make them feel bad for you because you've had like a bad experience or something like that.
That is exactly right, Daniel. Thank you. It's to elicit pity. You know, I've had such a rough life. You should feel sorry for me. This backfires in two ways. The first way is that you don't know who is on that review committee, and they may be reading your story and going, oh, poor baby, you think you had it bad? And they went through something much worse than you did. So you just shot yourself in the foot there. The other way that this can backfire on you is if you're telling a sob story, you're sort of telling it from the position of being a victim. Victims are not resourceful people, and scholarships go to resourceful people. Okay. Now then, that does not mean that bad things don't happen to us, and it does not mean it's not okay to talk about them. Recall the example that I gave you of the young man who began his scholarship essay by telling me that when he was 18, he was an alcoholic and a drug addict. That could have been couched as a complete sob story. So I was in this horrible place, and you should feel really bad for me and give me a scholarship. It wasn't delivered that way at all. It was delivered as a story of hope. It was delivered as a story of how this young man found his direction and his future, and it was powerful. A lot of times I get scholarship essays from students who are going into nursing or other allied health professions, and they tell about a time in their lives when they cared for a loved one, or when they themselves went through a horrible injury or a catastrophic illness, and the experience that they had at the hands of the medical professionals who cared for them or cared for their loved ones was what inspired them to go into the medical field. That's not a sob story. So if it's something that happened to you that really contributed to your decision to pursue a certain education career path, by all means talk about it. Just be careful to avoid taking that sort of victim perspective. Okay, we all know that, you know, you're at this point in your education, you're a college student, you know that it's important to edit your papers for mechanical correctness. You need to have no grammar, punctuation, spelling errors, because those do not make you look like a resourceful person. But there's another reason you need to capitalize on editors. Think of a couple of people that are really trusted friends or family members who will be honest with you. And when you have your essay in its final draft form and you've read it to yourself and you think it sounds pretty good, give it to them and ask them to read it. And then don't just say, did I do a good job? Because they'll either say yes or no, and that'll be the end of it. Ask them, when you read my essay, would you award me the scholarship? Why or why not? And then listen to what they have to say. Because a lot of times when we write, we know our topic so well that we think we've conveyed it to other people. And that's because we assume, you know, I know this part of it, and I sort of mistakenly assumed that you did. And our families and friends are usually more willing than people that don't know us as well to tell us, you know, I think you sound a little big-headed here, and that could be off-putting. Or conversely, I think that when you wrote this part here about this experience that you had, you could have said a little bit more. You could have talked about the time that grandma broke her hip and you took care of her for the entire summer and got her groceries and mowed her grass. I mean, those are resourceful things that you didn't mention. So they can help you with the tone and the content of your essay in a way that just an editor that's looking at it for correctness cannot. And then really listen to what they have to say and be willing to you know, consider changing things to make it sound better. Okay, this one really doesn't need me to explain it to you. If you didn't do it, don't say you did. And if you did do it, don't say you didn't. Okay, so those are the tips for making your scholarship essay stand out among the crowd. And now we're going to talk about the effort of a scholarship search. And the first thing that I'm going to tell you is when I started teaching this class 5 or 6 years ago, I would have students tell me when I talked about doing a scholarship search, oh, it's going to take a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. It does. It does. So I want you to think about something. Let's say that you leave here tonight and you go to the NPC Friends and Family search engine I'm going to share with you, and you spend some time looking at it, and you find a half a dozen scholarships that you're eligible to apply for, and you craft a winning essay, and you take a lot of time to make it really good, and you send it to me to edit for you, and you send it to your friends to edit for you, and you get your letters of recommendation, and you send off these applications, and all of this takes 4 hours, you know, out of your life, which it will. It'll take that, and time goes by, and you get a couple of rejection letters, because you will. You're not going to get every scholarship you apply for. But you persist, and by golly, one day you open the mailbox and there's a letter from me or a phone call saying, congratulations, you have won the Jennifer Lee Witt Memorial Scholarship in the amount of $1,000. You spent 4 hours of your life trying to do that. How much did you just make an hour? Mathematicians. You won $1,000 and it took you 4 hours. How much did you just make an hour?
250.
Yeah, $250 an hour. Pursuing scholarships is worth your time. Okay, and the students that I see that are the most successful at it, they almost consider it as kind of like a part-time job. That doesn't mean that you have to spend every spare minute of every day pursuing scholarships. It's like eating an elephant one bite at a time, right? The first thing you have to do, by golly, is fill out your FAFSA. If you have not done so, here's the link. And by the way, I'm not going to open all of these, and I'm also going to tell you where you can find this entire outline after this class. So don't worry about this, but this is the link for the FAFSA. And if you haven't done it, just do it. No excuses. You're going to need it for other scholarships in addition to NPC Friends and Family, and you may find out that you're going to get a Pell Grant. Plus, if you do it for this academic year, you're going to get $500 from NPC. Now then, what do I mean by a search engine? This is NPC's search engine, npc.edu/scholarships. Can you all see the page now that says scholarships?
Oh, I think I still see your PowerPoint. You might need to stop share.
So I'm going to do a new share. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
So I want you to go to this page when you leave the class tonight, and or whenever soon. And just kind of peruse through here and know that there are over 400 scholarships posted on this site, and that some of them are open and some of them are closed and some of them you won't, you know, be eligible for. This CASO scholarship is open until October 1st. So let's have a look at that. CASO Student Scholarship. This is provided by Northland Pioneer College's Classified and Administrative Staff Organization. It provides $500 for this semester. And you have to be, here's the criteria. You have to be a degree-seeking student with a degree plan on file. You have to have filled out the FAFSA. You have to be enrolled in 6 or more credits this semester, because this is the semester of award for this one. Cumulative GPA of 2.0 or better. See, I told you they're not all for 4.0 students. You do have to have your high school diploma or GED. So if you're currently in high school, like you're doing NAVIT, you can't apply for this one. And they're not giving this to people who already have a bachelor's degree. So what are the submission requirements? I manage this for them. I don't fund this scholarship, but I manage it. So you're going to submit the application to me. You're going to need a scholarship cover letter form, and it looks like this. It's a fillable PDF. And you just need to fill it out and sign it. Electronic signature is okay. Then you're going to need to write that essay. Now this one, so remember I just gave you the menu for the personal essay. This one says describe your educational and career plans, financial status, how this scholarship will help you achieve your goals, and why you are the best candidate to receive this scholarship. So when you write that essay, you can pretty much use the recipe I just gave you, but you're going to want to go back and be sure that you specifically addressed each of these. Like, for example, I didn't mention for you to tell straight out why you think you're the best candidate. Some funders want to see that. So be sure you address each of these points. When you click here for tips on writing your essay, well, look, it's the outline for tonight's presentation, and you can just have that whole outline for writing your scholarship essay. And I also include these links like the FAFSA and the link to the search engine. And then I'm going to talk about the Arizona Community Foundation in a minute. So they also require you to have an unofficial transcript, which you can get from my NPC. You guys know how to get your unofficial transcript from my NPC. And they want a current degree audit, which you need to get from your academic advisor. And then it goes on and says, submit the application to, and here's all the information, and you can submit them to my email. And this says for the deadline for the spring semester, for the fall semester is October 1st at 12 noon Mountain Standard Time. We put a timestamp because there's got to be a cutoff. Okay, so it's 12 noon because I don't want to look at midnight. So this is one that you can actually apply for right now when you leave tonight. Okay, so I am going to find you.
Somebody had a question in the chat, I think.
Okay, so hold on one second. I'm going to get myself back into your. So let me look at the question. So I am a high school student, Carson, and my classes are free this year after I earn the $500 for completing my FAFSA. Can I use that this summer or next fall? Is this the same for scholarships? What is the time frame to use the funds? Those are good questions. And how do I find my unofficial transcript? Okay, so Carson, if you are a high school student, there are some scholarships you can't apply for until you've graduated and have either your diploma or GED. And the $500 for completing your FAFSA will actually just be dispersed to you. So you can use it any way that you want. You can use it for summer semester because there really aren't a lot of scholarships for summer. You can use it for next spring. But until you get your diploma, you're not going to be eligible for a lot of NPC Friends and Family scholarships. But there are going to be others out there that you can apply for that are on that search engine. And then your unofficial transcript, do you, I can't see you, but if you can give me a yes or no, if you know how to log into my NPC, you can scroll down the sidebar and there's a link for downloading your unofficial transcript. So do you know how to log into my NPC? Okay, great. So you'll be able to find it. And you can also find, if you do your FAFSA and you have a financial aid award coming, you'll be able to find that as well. You'll be able to find your financial aid award letter. Okay, and so I'm going to go back to screen sharing because I want to show you. I'm going to jump down to this link again. The Arizona Community Foundation is a super resource, and I'm not going to click on it because I want to take you to the NPC Friends and Family Scholarships for spring. But the Arizona Community Foundation is essentially a foundation that manages foundations. So we could be a part of that if we wanted to. And the cool thing about them is their website allows you to go on a couple times a year and set up a profile. And the profile is going to ask you a lot of the questions that would be included in your personal scholarship essay. And it's also going to maybe ask you to write an essay. When you upload all of that, the Arizona Foundation matches you with all the scholarships that they manage. So that can help you to find some scholarships that you would not have otherwise found. I would also say that it's not a substitute for doing a search, because you're going to find more scholarships by doing a web search, like, for example, using the NPC search engine. But I also want to tell you the Arizona Community Foundation scholarships are mostly for students attending Arizona institutions. The npc.edu/scholarship site includes scholarships for lots of different, very broad usage. You can be attending pretty much anywhere in the United States for a lot of those. And then I'm going to say, and I'll remind you of this at the end, if you would like me to help you with editing your essay, or you have questions you didn't think of during the presentation, please don't hesitate to contact me. This is my email and phone number. And do remember that I just showed you the link of where you can get this when we get off the meeting tonight. So I'm going to go back one more time to npc.edu/scholarships and show you. If you go to this page, just type in NPC Friends and Family and hit search. Can you see the scholarship page okay?
Yes.
And everything that's going to be open on October 1st, they're currently closed. These are going to open on October 1st with the closing date of Wednesday, November 10th. You can click on these scholarships and read what's required. And so let's just look at one. The Leg Up Scholarship. This is a $750 scholarship. And this is for students who are not eligible for the Pell Grant. So you have to do your FAFSA. And if you find out you're not eligible to get the Pell Grant, you can apply for this scholarship to help you. Once again, this gives you all of the same information, the criteria that you have to meet to be eligible, the application documents that you have to submit, including the cover letter form and tips for writing your scholarship essay, which is the outline for this class, and then how to get your transcript and how to fill out your FAFSA and where to send all the information, where to send the application to. Okay. Now I want to go back and show you the scholarships that we have for the upcoming semester. So let me go back up here. Again, these are due no later than November 10th at noon Mountain Standard Time. And this just gives you a snapshot of each of the scholarships that we'll have available. The Fill the Gaps is the same as the Leg Up I just showed you, except that it's for students who are receiving financial aid for the 21-22 academic year. So if that's you, you can apply for this one. As long as you meet the other criteria, you're going to be enrolled in 6 or more credits during the semester of the award. You have a cumulative GPA of 2.0 or better. And I can award 9 of these each semester. So you have a really good chance of winning one of them. Okay, we have the Press Winslow Memorial Scholarship. I am able to award 2 of these for spring 2022, $1,000 a piece, GPA of 2.5, enrolled in 6 or more credits during the semester. And you must show need. And I'm going to talk about that with each of these. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be getting the Pell Grant, but you really have to convey in that 4th paragraph of your essay, why do you need this scholarship? Funders want to understand that. The same with the Jennifer Lee Witt Memorial Scholarship. I will have 3 of these for, this should say spring of 2022, so I didn't change that, but it's the same thing. And the same criteria as for the Press Winslow. The Charles Lizitsky Memorial Scholarship is for Native American students only, but the criteria is much the same. You have to be enrolled in 6 or more credits during the semester of award, have a cumulative GPA of 2.0 or better. Okay, the Jean Swarthout Presidential Excellence Scholarship, if you have a GPA of 3.5 or better, you can apply for this one, and it's $1,000. If you're in the nursing program and you are not eligible for financial aid, the Doris Reed Nursing Scholarship is for you. So if you're not eligible for financial aid, check out that one. And then we have a series that were funded by a gentleman called John Graff, who was just a tremendous friend of NPC Friends and Family. He passed away last January. Students in college and career prep classes, so they're not yet taking college level courses, maybe they're pursuing their GED, can apply for this one. And then if you're in a career and technical education degree program, so you're studying welding or certified nursing assistant or construction technology or business, if you're in CTE, this is for you. If you're university bound, meaning you're going to leave NPC and go on to pursue a bachelor's degree, apply for the university bound scholarship. All of these require letters of recommendation. So as soon as you think you're going to apply for one of these, get your essay written and ask your recommenders to send letters of recommendation to me for these. The CCP scholarship requires 1, the Career and Technical Education Scholarship requires 1, and the University Bound requires 2. Whoops. Okay, if you're a U.S. military veteran, spouse, or dependent of a veteran, you can apply for this scholarship, U.S. military vets, and this is the criteria for that one. The White Mountain Women's Club is a new scholarship we offered for the first time last semester. And these folks are interested in funding students who are attending the White Mountain campus in Show Low. This is a $1,200 scholarship, and you have to have completed at least 24 credits. So they're looking for someone who's kind of quote unquote a sophomore, even though we really don't talk in that vernacular about NPC, but they want you to have a couple semesters or 24 credits under your belt. Okay, and then we have a really cool scholarship. If you're going to be graduating this May and going on to a residential baccalaureate program, so this is not for those of you doing an online bachelor's degree, the Taking Flight Scholarship in memory of Dr. Eric B. Henderson was established last semester, and we awarded it for the first time this past summer to a student going to the University of Arizona to study veterinary sciences. This one is not going to be open on October 1st, but I want to make you aware of it if you're planning to graduate, because this is something that you can be thinking about applying for. This will open for applications right after graduation in May, and we'll award it in June. Okay, and then we have 3 brand new scholarships for Native American students for 2022. The Andy Vaughn Academic Scholarship for Native American students is basically the same criteria as for the Press Winslow and Jennifer Witt. It's $1,000, and there are going to be 7 of these available for Native American students. And then this transportation grant is for Native American students who are residing on tribal lands and who have to travel 30 miles or more to come to a campus or center to attend classes. This just has an application form. You don't have to write an essay for this. If you click on this, you will find that there's a form that you can actually fill out online and submit. You're going to have to provide evidence of your domicile, like where do you live, evidence that your physical address is where you're driving from, and you're going to have to show that you're enrolled in at least 1 class in the spring that has a travel component. So like you have to come in for a lab, or you have to come in for a studio class for art. And that's what you have to do to get that one. And there are 10 of these available. And then we have another graduate scholarship. If you're a Native American student graduating this May and going on to, this can also be an online baccalaureate program. If you're going on to a bachelor's degree program, look into this one. This is a $3,000 scholarship that we'll be awarding for the first time this summer. So these are all the scholarships available from NPC Friends and Family, but there are many, many scholarships out there. And I want to encourage you to apply for ours, apply for NPC Friends and Family, just to prove to yourself you can do it. And I will help you all I can through the process. And then consider all the way through your education that scholarships and grants that you can get are the way to go, and that you don't need to go into debt to get an education. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and see if anybody has any other questions that I can answer. Does anybody else have anything that they, and Daniel, did I answer your question okay? David, what can I help you with, sir? You can unmute and
Yeah.
ask.
Okay, yeah. Very awesome presentation for sure. Very helpful on everything.
Thank you.
I do have a question. I am currently I'm a little bit older. I'm 28 years old, coming back to college for a second time. Now, when I'm filling out my scholarship applications, I know there's some of them that will ask about like if you played any sports or if you were a leader in any roles in high school or anything like that. Can me being away from school so long, do you think it's too long to enter in like that was captain and president of the golf team, golf club? I was varsity. Is it kind of too late to enter those in since it's been a while?
If it's asked on the form, if there's actually a form that asks that, I would answer it exactly like that. And, because I think they're also going to ask you what year you graduated from high school. So they're going to recognize that it's been a while, but it's certainly valid to talk about the fact that you had those experiences, especially if they're asking about it. So I would definitely include that if it's part of the application.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? We look at chat. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Nathan. and yeah, I want to just reiterate, please don't go into debt to go to college. You don't have to. And so once again, I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat as well my email address. And if you think of anything later, don't hesitate to reach out. We did record this class, and I think we're going to provide a YouTube link for students who missed it so that they can get the information as well. So I look forward to receiving your scholarship essays and applications. And we will have NPC Friends and Family open on October 1st through November 10th. That CASO scholarship I showed you is open right now. So when you get off the call, look into applying for that one and let me know if I can help you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Robert, for your kind words. And I appreciate everybody for listening, and you all have a great evening. Thank